yeah, perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect. Okay. All right, here we are. Episode 2. We're going to move on to homeschooling and college. Okay. So, Dad, what did your house look like growing up? And what part of it did you like the most?
Well,
We've
it
gone
was
through this
it
one.
was tiny, tiny, tiny. We had 1, 2, 3 rooms in it.
Yeah.
There was a living room and a kitchen, kind of a kitchen, and then a bedroom off the kitchen. And Mom's bed was in the one part of it, and then we had bunk beds on the other part of the thing, and we had no inside toilet. We had a little shanty that Grandpa Tolman built for us out on the back side of it, and we had a chemical toilet there. And the other thing was we had the outside toilet where you'd run, and especially in the cold weather, and hurry up and do your business and use your catalog, the old catalogs.
Well, what about you, Mom? What was your house like?
Well, I kind of explained it to you. We had a big kitchen and a living room, nice sized living room. We had a big oak table, dining room table in the middle of the kitchen. Had quite a few nice chairs around it, and that's where the gathering was all the time. We had bay windows
Yep.
in the kitchen, and we had bay windows in the front room, which give it a lot more space. But
Did you guys gather anywhere else or just in the kitchen? Was
Most
there another
of-
spot in the house, like a living
That
room?
was usually
yeah,
the-
there was a living room, and we would gather in there for when we'd have Sunday dinners. We'd go in there. The adults would go in there and visit, and we would wash. The kids would wash the dishes in a old tin pan. What did you call it? Dish pan.
Yeah.
And put them on a drain board, and then they'd wipe the dishes. But it was not the gathering place at the table was a lot at Christmas time when you'd sit around the table and eat peanuts and chocolates that Mom had made, and that was a gathering, visiting pair. But after Sunday dinners, our gathering spot was always the living room.
The book has a picture of the gathering, so you can have an idea when you see that. It's got pictures of it.
What was your bedroom like, Mom? You already went through that, huh?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, we did go through that.
Yep, we did that.
Now, Dad, growing up as a kid, you never had a refrigerator, right? Was it not invented yet?
Refrigerators were invented, but Grandma and Grandpa's place had an ice box. And the reason I wanted you to talk about this was that I used to go out with my grandpa, and he'd take a big old ice saw, and we'd go out to Cochrane Lake, and he'd chop a hole in the ice, and then he'd start sawing with that ice saw and cut blocks of ice, and he'd put it into the truck, and then we'd hurry home, and out back behind the house, Grandma and Grandpa's house, we had what we called an ice house filled with sawdust. We'd pull the sawdust, shovel the sawdust back, put the ice in it, throw the sawdust back over top, and that lasted even into the summer. I can remember making homemade ice cream, and ice was still frozen.
Wow.
So, and then you'd take a block of that ice and put it in the ice box, and that would be like a cooler now, and that's how they'd keep the milk and cream cool. That's primarily all that they used it for, hon? Was just for milk and cream.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Do you remember when you first got a refrigerator, how old you were?
I would imagine when I was about 16, something like that.
Wow. How about you, Mom?
We always had a refrigerator. It wasn't very big, and I remember just the frozen part of it wasn't even big enough to put a 9x13 pan in it. But Mom always made ice cream, and it was kind of what, Blaine, an 8x9.
Oh, it'd be about 8x9.
And she'd always make ice cream for Sunday dinner, and she'd freeze it in that tiny little place in the fridge. She'd just keep stirring it and stirring it and stirring it till it frozen. But we always had I don't ever remember the ice blockade.
But it was one big door,
Yeah.
and then the ice box was.
If you look on the antiques on the internet, you can find it.
Yeah.
Those highfalutin
Oh, you
Lichmans
bet.
are-
You betcha. Frigidaire.
So where was your favorite place to play growing up, Dad?
Oh, Grandma and Grandpa's porch.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. And their front lawn. We played in the,
What the heck did you play on the porch? Did you play school or?
probably, Evie and Judy and I can't remember all the games we played. They're probably, we'd look back and say they're sissy games now, but then
Well,
anyway.
now, when did you learn to play rook?
I don't think we learned to play rook until we got involved with the Bunnage family, did we? We didn't play much rook before then, did we?
I don't know. The Tolmans always played canasta or gin rummy.
Gin rummy. But not rook.
But they
it
were
wasn't until
card-
we got affiliated with the Bunnages that we really started to play rook.
But the Tolmans were card players. They always played
Yeah.
gin rummy.
Yeah, because I always remember you saying Grandma Faye was fiercely competitive when it came to cards.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. She liked to win. She like Gilda.
Yeah.
Now, when did you always have running water in the house?
No.
Wow. Okay, tell us about that.
When we were really young, but old enough to carry a 2.5 gallon bucket of water, we lived in that little house I was telling you about, Keith and Mickey's
Yep.
kitchen, and it was east of Main Street. Every couple of 3 days, we'd have to go up to Brooks's place, just up half a block up, and because they had running water, and Barry and I'd each get a bucket of water, and we'd carry it back, and that was how we had our water in the first part. And when Grandpa built the house for Aunt Eva, the log house, he put one big sink there, but no hot water. We never had any hot water. And in their place, on the very west wall, they had one big sink with one tap, and on a nail above it was a dipper, and you just pulled the dipper off the wall and got your drink. But then I always fooled everybody because I would drink from the opposite side of the dipper because nobody would ever think of drinking from there. I didn't want to drink where they were drinking.
You outsmarted them all.
Water had to be heated on the stove.
Wow.
No running water. No running hot water.
Was that a thing for you too, Mom?
We always had to heat our water, but we always had running water in our house. I don't ever remember not having running water.
Now, what about bathrooms? How many bathrooms were in your house?
Grandma and Grandpa got a bathroom in that house. By that time, we were living with Grandma and Grandpa, and I was 16 years old. That's the first time there was an inside bathroom.
Wow, you got to angle that mic right. Pull it up. You can sit back, but just pull it up with about 6 inches from you.
Okay.
So 16 years old. So you just had an outhouse in the backyard?
Yep.
Did you have to dig the new refuse holes?
Oh, absolutely.
So who was the guy who used to play pranks and move them?
Oh, I don't know. There
you had
bunch
told
of
me-
people.
you told me
bunch of
somebody
people
had
did
done
that.
that.
Yep. Moved it, and then they go to run up and push the toilet over and tip the toilets.
Yeah.
That was a Halloween tradition.
I thought it had something to do with Keith Russell. Somebody had done it to him or somebody. I couldn't remember.
No,
That
it
they
was
just moved.
You just said it just back beyond it.
So they walk into the hole. That is a nasty, nasty prank.
It wasn't a good trick.
I
for
thought it was
sure.
bad when I put saran wrap on the toilet and Mom peed all over herself. But man. So, what about you, Mom? Always had a running. Did you have a toilet in the house?
No, I didn't. We always had to go out to the outhouse too, but I probably was maybe 12 or 13 when we finally got a bathroom, inside bathroom.
Yeah.
You felt like you'd finally made
Oh
it.
my gosh, yes. My poor mom, yeah, she was pretty, and it was, and then she had hot water too. But I remember before that, we all, on a Saturday night, she would heat the bath water on the coal stove in the kitchen and then put it in, we had a kind
Galvanized
of,
tub.
yeah, in a galvanized tub, and everybody would have to bath in the same.
Did you
same
have
water.
to draw straws to see who could
Yep.
get it first?
Yep.
We never ever worried about it. It was just the thing you did. You
And
know?
and to have any privacy, she would hook up a sheet from one corner to the other corner, and you'd get in there, and it was just enough room to get in the tub and get out. And I think we all used the same towel practically
Once
too.
a week.
What
Yep.
you'd have a shower once a week?
once a week.
Yep.
And that's why looking back now, the Brill cream and wave set were on the hair, because your hair would have to be greasy. But we never thought about it, it's just a thing you did.
Wow. So, was it kind of like somebody in the town having the nicest house or the nicest car? Did people find out? Well, that's the first. When somebody actually got running water in the house or they got a hot water tank. Were they the talk of the town?
I remember the Smythes and Lily Olson were the talk of the town because they had
television.
Had the first televisions, and I can
That was
remember
about
going up.
1955, I
How
think,
many-
54 or 55.
How many kids went up to Lizzie Smythe and watched Bonanza every Sunday night?
Well, we went to Lily Olson's to watch All-Star Wrestling. We thought that
Wow.
was okay at the time. And, of course, Hockey Night in Canada.
There must have been 10 of us or so
yeah.
to watch.
I can't imagine. There are certain things that come out in life that when you have it, you're like, okay, this is really something that's nice. Like when Tash made me get the bidet for our bathroom, I'd never really used one, and then when I used it, I was like, okay, I get it. That's nice. I can't imagine pooping in an outhouse your whole life, and then at age 16,
And no toilet paper.
yeah. Oh,
You
using
used
catalogs,
catalogs.
but then going into someone's home and sitting on this nice porcelain bowl filled with water, and just like some sort of sorcery, you just press a lever and it just disappears. Like that must have been a game changer.
Yep.
Even more so than hot water.
Well,
I can't imagine. I don't have to go outside to poop. I don't have to hear the flies buzzing underneath me. Even going out to Dean and Thelma's for family reunions, I remember using that outhouse. It's like, I cannot poop fast enough and get out of this filth. It's just the nastiest
Well, it's when
thought.
it builds up,
Oh, it's the worst. For me, the worst is just hearing the flies in there. It's just awful. Oh, it's the worst. So now, the next question here was, did you have a telephone, and what was it like?
We've talked about that.
No, we have not. We talked about it during the break.
Oh. Oh yes,
Well,
we
our
had one.
telephones.
Yes, we had one that hung on the
Wall.
wall. It had a ringer on the one side, and you had a number, and you were on a party line, and your numbers were designated. Now, like my number was 612, so you'd ring 6 was the long number, and then you'd ring 2 shorts, and then you'd answer it.
6 was the kind of the party exchange. So the number 6, we were in the 6 group.
Yeah.
And then the next number was the long, and the next number were the 2 shorts. There were 3 shorts. Now, there was an earpiece that hung off a little U-shaped holder off the side of the phone, and then there was a big, almost like a microphone that you talked into. So you'd pick up the headpiece, the earpiece, and check to see, and you'd always say,
Line busy?
"Is the line busy?" And they say, "Yes, it is." Oh, sorry. And then you just, oops. And then you just cover the speaker part off with your hand, and then you'd listen to what the conversation was about.
Oh, wow.
If it wasn't interesting, you'd hang up.
So it's confusing, though, when you say your number was 612. So it was just like a rotary dial?
No, it wasn't. It
Just-
was like a
Oh, it was a crank.
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 So did you count to 6 or was
Sure.
it 6
No,
turns?
no. There's a certain group of people were on line number 6. On
Okay.
the party line.
There must have been 8 of us on
Yeah.
the line.
And
6.
so then when I'd phone Mom, I'd just take it down, and then I would, with the rotary, I'd dial a long time.
But it's not really 6.
No, I'm dialing 1.
Oh,
And then 1, 2, then Mom would answer.
wow.
Two quick little
So
little
if
turns.
I heard a long and 2 shorts, I knew that was my time to answer. And you know the pencil sharpeners, how you used to
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just like that.
That pencil sharpener, that's how it was. It's just like a little rotary thing.
Wow.
So if you got it straight what I'm talking about then?
Yeah.
The number 6 is the party line
Yeah.
for so many families.
Yeah.
Then the next number is the long. So it was 1, so you'd ring only one time. And you'd ring it, and then boom, boom, like that.
It's so bizarre. And so when did it switch from that to like a rotary?
The rotary? Phew,
Wow, we had that all during our dating years.
it was after we were married.
Do you remember Dad's number, Mom?
Oh, yeah.
What was Dad's number?
It was 613. Mine was 612, so it was pretty easy.
Yeah.
Wow. So who was 614?
Somebody down the line.
What was Weasel Winder's number?
I'm not sure.
And there were some that was a long and a short and a long.
Oh, they didn't get a lot of phone calls then, huh? Sounds like an arm workout. So when did it switch to rotary dials?
I'm guessing in Hillspring that would have been around 1960, something like that.
Wow. Holy cow.
Because all our
Yeah.
dating times would have been after that, wouldn't it?
It would've-
65, probably.
Yeah, I was going to say we were married.
Yeah.
It,
We had it in Calgary, and then it finally came to the
so it would be,
mid 60s.
yeah, mid-60s.
Yeah.
Now, I know one of the criticisms that we always had of Jody and Brent, and now my kids are guilty of the exact same thing, is that they just always are hanging out. And I just remember thinking, there's no way I would have ever done that. Like if you guys were having, Janet and Keith Russell over to play cards, I wouldn't have come and sat in the front room and been like, hey, I'm just going to sit here and start hanging out with the adults. Did your parents have friends that used to come over and hang
were
out at the
never-
house?
Yep,
Oh, and
lots of times.
We'd always absent ourselves.
We'd always, like my mom and dad would always have people over for soup after, what do you call it, square dancing.
Oh, the square
And
dancing.
if
Yep.
us kids were in the front room playing a game of
Square
whatever-
dancing in Hillspring.
Oh,
betcha.
it was a
Sounds
big,
like the whitest event I can possibly.
It
And
was a
Uncle
big
Jerry,
thing.
Uncle Jerry Bunnage was the caller too.
The collar. What's the collar?
Well, because the caller says, "Now all join hands and you circle the ring. Stop where you are, give your honey a swing."
What?
You've never heard that?
No.
Ever before?
No.
Now swing that corner, gal. Go back
then-
and swing your partner.
and
She's
they-
your little gal.
And they had outfits. My mom would
Oh,
sew
yeah.
and sew
Big
and
full-
sew these great
full
big
skirts and-
with crinolines under them, and they were short.
Grandma told me you used to play for him.
And
She'd
you,
play the piano.
She's like Max. Didn't read a note, but could play by ear.
She'd always throw in a little bit of jazz in there for everything.
Well, chords, all chords, Just
Wow. So
but as soon as the adults come, we had to go to bed or had to absent ourselves from where they were. Never ever could sit with the
yeah,
adults.
we never sat among the adult talk. That wasn't.
but the square dancing, the adults would do that too?
Oh, that's what they did. The kids didn't. When we were in high school, we went to the hops, record hops.
And you used to remember you'd have the sock hops too, and you used to go to the dances. You wear no shoes; you just wore socks.
Yeah, they call it a sock hop.
And it was called a sock hop.
Well, remember me telling Max he needs to learn at the hop.
Yeah.
Well, that was what
And
they're
you
talking
would
about.
you'd wear socks to the hop. You wouldn't wear
At the hop.
shoes.
Wow. I'm so confused right now. So the adults would go and Uncle Jerry would call. And
The music
kids
plays.
said, we're too cool for that. We're going to take off our shoes and go someplace else.
Well, we usually didn't cut into their time. It was a school. It was the school that held the dances.
The school held the dances for the adults too?
No.
Oh,
The church.
okay.
They were always in
They
the
had a
church
square
gym.
dance club in the town.
Well, they were all over. They were in Jefferson.
Oh,
I can
heavens.
remember Jefferson coming to Square
Mountain
Dance,
View and Glenwood,
Pincher
Millspring and-
Creek and Fort McLeod. It was a big thing, and they always the women were just and the men wore western
ties.
Yeah.
ties with those little tie things.
The bolo ties or whatever?
Yep.
And the women would have beautiful. Oh, they had sew these beautiful outfits to match. Look it up on your device sometime and just say square dance, and you'll see what we're talking about.
Yeah, no. So were you self-conscious? Do you think, did you know you were white when you're doing it?
Never thought of. Is there any other?
Well, I can't even imagine because the lack of rhythm that's involved at those kind of dances. I'm self-conscious about it because I have no rhythm at all. Were there people in town that were known for being really good dancers?
Oh heavens!
Oh yeah, and the
Your
Tolmans
Grandma
were the
Faye
best.
was one of the best.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Tolmans always were
Mom
classified
and
as.
LeVar taught dancing to the youth and to the adults.
Blaine's
Really?
mom could do anything. She could do ballroom. She could do. She could do
and she was
anything.
so light on her feet, and she was a pretty stout woman, you know. But she was always a pleasure to dance with when we'd go to dances.
But the Tolmans, was there any a bad dancer in them? They all,
Mona,
because they were always.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, Brandon, that they did for entertainment in those
Yeah.
days. That you didn't.
You
Wasn't
look forward
television.
to
You
it.
played. You didn't have television or devices. You played cards or games, or you had a dance.
Did it happen every week?
Weekends. When school started, it was basketball. But then after basketball,
Yeah,
you'd have a sock hop.
I would bet that we went to a dance every weekend.
Really?
Yeah.
Waterton.
And so how would there be a live band playing the music?
No, record hop. Records,
Oh, the record
records. Just a little turntable and put on the 45 and
Okay, so but when Uncle Jerry would call it and Grandma Tolman would play the piano, who sang? Like, was someone singing or she just played the piano?
you just heard what I said. What I did, how I did it.
Yeah.
That was what Uncle Jerry would do.
Get up to a mic and.
So he would sing that?
Oh yes.
And it was the same song every
Oh
time?
no.
No, they had
There's the
several
Virginia
different-
Reel and the Oh Johnny O and
Oh my gosh, Brandon, you got to look it up on your device. Look it up sometime.
I will.
You're square dancing because
But so there would be like the same 7 songs every
then,
weekend.
no,
they had
and
lots
then
of
they
different
would.
songs. They'd have different songs that they would.
But they would learn.
adapt
Yeah.
to the music.
So if it weren't for Grandma Tolman and Uncle Jerry, did anybody else fill
Well, you
in?
just get the
and
record
sing,
player
or-
out. You get the record player and
okay.
play music. Yep.
Okay,
They
so
had
this
lot-
wasn't like a new invention to have a record player, and
Oh no.
like I didn't know if the
a
square
hi-fi
dances
was called
predated records.
A high fidelity.
Yeah,
No such thing as a stereo in those days.
Yeah.
When
It's
we
like-
got high fidelity, that was.
wasn't
the
it
thing.
gramophone or whatever?
We didn't have those.
Wow, that's so interesting. I had no idea. So aside from what we talked about a little bit earlier with Uncle Rex living with him, did you have other relatives live with you at certain times? Or is that question referring to Uncle Rex?
Well, that was for Rex and Grandpa Alex.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember Grandma and Grandpa Tolman having Ivy Savoy and Patsy and Teddy were her 2 children, and they came and they lived with Grandma for a good year or so, or maybe even more than that.
Where were they from?
I have no idea. I'm trying to think back. I was trying to find if there's any record of them, and I can't find anything. But I think
weren't
what
relatives?
it was through the military that Uncle Dave Boyer, I'm not sure exactly, but the husband, Eddie Savoy, was in the military. And so he was called away, and so Ivy bunked in with Grandma and Grandpa Tolman. Now that would have been probably before around 1952, something like that. Mm-hmm. So, and the reasons why it happened, I don't know. I'm going to have to get a hold of Aunt Mickey and see if she can remember
Remembers?
any stories about it or whatever.
But that you weren't related to them.
No, we weren't related to them, but very close to them. Ivy was homely as a mud fence, and but she
Mud fence.
anyway.
Yeah, so what was the name of the first school you went to, Mom? What did it look like?
Well, it was just two grades shared a classroom, so you'd have, wasn't it Blaine? 1 and 2
Yep.
were together,
Multi grades.
multi-grades.
What was the school called?
Hill City School.
I don't remember that, but I guess that must have been.
Yep.
What about you, Dad? Same school?
That the same school.
So it was in Hill Spring. It's
Yeah.
called Hill City School.
Hill City School, and so I took grades 1 through 5 at Hill Spring, and then took grade 6 and grade 7 in Cardston, at the Parkview School, which now sits across the empty lot that sits across from the high school in Cardston. And that's where I took grade 6. Then we moved over to grade 7, over into where the Cardston High School is now.
So the empty lot across from the high school, you mean like where E.J. Wood was?
Yes.
Oh, okay, but wasn't there a Hillcrest School right beside it?
Hillcrest was up back at the back. E.J. Wood was here, and the Parkview was,
So how big was your class?
25, something like that.
Oh, that's not bad. What about you, Mom, at Hill
I
City?
think that they were all pretty much the same, right around 20, weren't there, Blaine?
Yeah.
What was that little school that out by Community Pasture that Aunt Ruby
Seddon?
said in school? That didn't look like it was big enough for 25 students. How many students were in her class?
Oh, I would imagine they'd have like
8?
15 or
Yeah.
12 or 15
In a
there, I
class.
would imagine.
Did they have playgrounds at your schools?
Oh, yes.
Hill City had a playground. What was it like?
Well, that's probably my
Swings.
most embarrassing experience as a kid. Because they had teeter-totters, and they had swings. That was about it, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Teeter-totters and swings, I think. And I was on a teeter-totter, and we were bouncing each other, and I got a sliver right up my butt. And so
Sounds like Max.
Not like Max.
A little smaller
It was just
than
a
Max.
sliver. Anyway, I was in grade 2 at the time, and Bernice Pitcher was my teacher, and I came in crying to her, and so she took me. Her desk was in front of the class, so she took me over, stood in front of me, of course, but in front of the whole class, pulled my pants down, got the tweezers, and pulled that sliver out. I was so embarrassed.
Wow.
But anyway, and you just learned how to pump as high as you could go on those swings. They were big swings, weren't they?
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, ball fields. We played softball and basketball. Although basketball, I don't remember an outside basketball hoop. It was always inside.
What was the game we always used to play? There was a pitcher and a catcher and a
Roundup.
Roundup.
Roundup?
Yep.
What's that game?
Well, it's like a regular softball game. You have 3 people in, and then all the fielders are out, and then you do workup. So you run for your base. That's how you handle it. Right?
Well, there was only one base too, wasn't there?
No, there were 3 bases. So you run for your base, and so if you were lucky enough to get home, then you start to bat first. And then there's catcher and pitcher, first, second, third, shortstop, and the fielders. Then if you got a hit, went to first base, that was fine, but you had to get all the way around back in order to stay in. So if another guy hit a single and you got into second base, another guy hit a single, you only went to third base, then you're out so then everybody rotates. Then the catcher now goes to bat. Pitcher now becomes the catcher first. Wow. That's
Yeah, I didn't follow that at all, but I'm hoping maybe somebody else did.
That's what
But it
Roundup.
sounds interesting.
Rounders is called.
Wow.
Yep. Workup.
Now, did you struggle in school? Was there any subjects that you struggled in?
No, I don't think so. I mean, when I say I wouldn't say I didn't struggle, but because I took 2 years of grade 12, because I didn't know what studying was all about, and so it took me 2 years to get my high school matriculation.
Well, what about you, Mom?
Well, no, I didn't struggle really in school, and I didn't. But this is really funny because I didn't really like history. Liked everything. And
What's funny about that? That's
Well, because-
sacrilege.
Yeah. Who had the best penmanship in your family, Mom?
My dad.
Huh? Really?
My dad was a beautiful writer.
Really?
Her grandpa was. Her grandpa.
My
Alex
grandpa
was, too.
Lishman was.
But Mom had a really good
calligraphy,
hand when she
too.
was younger too.
Kathy was a beautiful writer. Shirley, not so much.
No,
Well,
Shirley
she was all
wasn't-
right.
No, Shirley was not a good writer.
How about you, Dad? Were you known for your penmanship?
Far and wide.
No, I mean you really have good penmanship.
When
For
I
a
was
man.
when I was in grade 3,
Sexist.
grade 4, we started writing cursive writing. Printing was gone by now. We started writing, and Nellie Harker was my teacher, and she constantly criticized my writing, and it was bad, horrible. As a matter of fact, and Mom tried to help me to write better, and I just was a bad writer. I got really poor marks in penmanship. So then I moved over to grade 5, and Iris Fulmer was my teacher. And she took me aside and she says, Blaine, just to make sure you finish your, showed me how to do cursive writing a little bit better. And then she did nothing but praise me about my writing. And that's when my writing started to improve.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what was your favorite subject in school? And who was your favorite teacher?
Social studies and my Uncle Keith.
Is he the reason you wanted to go into teaching?
Absolutely.
Really?
Right from grade 8 on, I wanted to be a teacher because I wanted to be just like him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did he know that?
I think so. I think we've mentioned that to him, don't you think, honey?
Yeah, I think so.
I always wonder that as a teacher, how many teachers don't really know the difference they made in
If
the
they
kid's
made it,
life and
yeah.
what it would mean to them. That's why, I don't know if you remember that. That's why Chad Wolf and I went and visited Ted King when we got home off our missions, just to let him know how good of a teacher he was. And I don't even know if it was true. We just knew that he had ALS,
Yeah.
and we felt bad and wanted to go talk with him. And we served our mission, in France, both of us, so we wanted to go and speak French with him and sit down and talk with him. And I
How'd that
remember
make you-
him saying it just meant the world to him that we took the time to
that's
come
good.
and talk to him.
I didn't realize
I didn't
that you'd
realize
done
that either.
Yeah.
Because I knew you liked.
We did
I-
the same
I-
thing with George Toon.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you really liked George Toon too.
Yeah, no, he was really good, just because he was our football coach as well.
Who was your favorite, honey? Grace Butler?
So why is that funny?
Oh, because she drew a paycheck. She didn't teach.
Oh,
Oh, she was bad.
Favorite teacher? I don't know as I had a favorite teacher.
what was your favorite subject?
Well, I wasn't phys ed. I can't
And
remember.
it wasn't history.
No, and it wasn't history. I don't know.
I think
Just say
Mom-
physics, and just something that nobody in the family
Yeah.
would have guessed.
Exactly.
Quantum theory. So, was there a bully at your school, Mom, other than you?
No, not really. I was the only one.
She had a corner of the market, didn't
I
have to
did.
worry about it. How about you, Dad? Who was the bully at your school?
Oh, yeah, we had a couple of them. One was Jay Jackson.
Was he really? I didn't know that.
Uh-huh. He was. And the other was Gail Brooks.
I didn't know
And
that.
Jay, he just picked on me one time is all. And so I wouldn't say he was really in the ballpark. He just rubbed my because he was much older than I was.
Yeah.
He was Barry's age, and he was a pretty big guy at the time, and just rubbed my nose in the snow and that. But Gail was probably the biggest of the bullies, and he used to make Buddy's life miserable.
Yeah.
And he'd call him down, call him a slant, and things like that. Because I don't know if you saw a picture of Buddy, but I don't know who his father was, but he definitely had Oriental or
Asian-looking eyes.
Asian appearance to him.
Almond-shaped eyes.
But anyway, he just figured he was
don't
Mr.
say
Big.
Oriental.
And so he and I had it out one night, and
Tell us that story, because I know everybody's heard it, but I would like to get it on the
Probably
record.
in the book.
It's in the book, but I want to hear Dad tell that story because it's my favorite story. I remember the day before Uncle Barry passed away, he told that story.
Oh, did
And
he?
Yeah, when we were in the hospital.
Uncle Barry
Yeah.
told the story?
Oh yeah, when we were sitting in the hospital, I had him tell that story, and because I remember his exact words were, "If I hadn't held your dad back, he would have beat the shit out of Gail Brooks." So, pardon my French, but
well,
yeah,
Gail was in grade 12, as a reasonably tall and rangy guy, and I was in grade 10, but I had my full size by grade 10. I was 175 pounds and just under 6 foot tall when I was in grade 10, and I was a pretty decent basketball player, and I made the starting lineup of the ball team.
Pretty decent. He was really good.
And anyway, I think at the time, Keith was the coach.
Yeah.
My Uncle Keith was the coach. And he had a staff meeting he had to go to. So he just tossed us a ball and he says, "You guys divide up teams and just have a scrimmage." And so we did that. And the backboard was probably maybe mounted against the wall, 3 feet off the wall. And so you could get behind the backboard for a rebound and not touch the wall. But if you touch the wall, you're out of bounds.
Yeah.
Well, we were having this scrimmage going on, and it was getting kind of roughhouse a little bit, and I got the rebound. And Gail said, "You were against the wall." And I said, "No, I wasn't against the wall." "You were, so I saw you. You were hit the wall. You're out of bounds. It's our ball." And I just said, "Okay, let the babies have their sugar," and flipped him the ball and started to run down the other side of the court because it wasn't a biggie to me. And he come behind me, and he threw his shoulder into me. Well, that was a mistake because I just saw red. And so I just came up behind him and two-handed shoved him into the floor and into the wall, and he came up swinging. Well, I'd taken boxing in Cardston when I was in Cardston, so I knew a little bit about self-defense, and he had these big roundhouse shots. Well, I just would block it, and then I just pound him. and then he tried to wrestle with me. Well, I just took him and wrestled him down and rubbed his head into the entrance between the gym and the hallway.
You had him in a headlock, didn't you?
I had him in a headlock, rubbing his head in there. And he was still spouting off to me, and then Monty Lishman, who was his cousin, and Barry grabbed me, and I remember Barry had pinned my arms back, and I turned my head to oh no, he had him like this, and Monty had Gail, and Gail spit in my face. And so I turned to Barry to tell him to let me go, let me go, let me go. And Monty had let Gail go, and he took a roundhouse swing and hit me right behind the ear, like that. And then I was furious. So then I'll never forget Barry saying, "Brooks, you better get the hell out of here because in 10 seconds I'm going to let him go and he's going to beat the shit out of you." And he took off. After that, he was my best friend. Just as nice as apple pie to me, and he stopped the bullying. So it was a fight worth fighting.
Wow. I just love that story because it shows that Uncle Barry, even though he was a couple years older than you, you had at least earned his respect.
Yeah.
As far as your ability.
I think that drew us closer together too, because we dated then together all through high school. I'm through his grade 12 year.
Yeah. Was Uncle Barry a good basketball player?
No. He had a two-handed shot. A two-handed shot, and I tried to break him of that habit, and he just couldn't see the merits of it, you know.
He was a really good dancer, though.
Yeah, he was. He was by far the
Probably
best dancer.
one of the best in southern Alberta, I would think.
We'd go clear to Lethbridge to record hops, and he'd win the dance contest.
Cock of the walk at the sock hop.
Yep, he was.
That's right.
He was.
Funny. So, all right, where are we here with questions? I think we're okay. You have on here, where did you eat lunch and what were your favorite dishes?
The only reason I say that is because we ate lunch at Grandma and Grandpa Tolman's place, and my favorite dish cream style yellow wax beans. Loved them. Either that or milk gravy and fresh made bread.
And every day you'd go eat there for lunch. How far was the school from their house?
Block.
Wow.
We never had a cafeteria. You always had to go home. I remember in the middle of the winter, if it got down below zero, you got to take a lunch, and that was really a treat. But other than that, we always walked home for lunch. You had an hour, and I would take Rian and go to my place because it was only a block and a half. Mom always had a big dinner. Yeah. So we never, ever stayed at school except when it was 30 below or 20 below, and you got to take a lunch.
So I remember when I was really young, I had to go to the Hillcrest School. It's where I was in there for my second grade, I think. First grade. And so you'd pack me a lunch every single day because that was too far for me to come home for lunch. But then when I went to Cardston Elementary School, it was just a couple blocks from the house where we live now. And so I'd come home for lunch every single day. But I'll never, to this day, if I smell pickles and tuna fish, it reminds me of my first grade 'cause that's what you gave me in my lunch almost every single day. You'd put lettuce with tuna fish and mayonnaise or whatever you'd put in
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
with some pickles and slice it in a diagonal. Pure love. But that smell. Can't say as though I really like eating that, but I do remember my packed lunch. That's why when you said it's a treat to get a packed lunch, I didn't view it that way. But
Would she take a bite out of it?
no,
She did with me. That was one of her terms of endearment. That every lunch she packed for me, she'd take the first bite out of the sandwich.
I actually didn't even think about that. So did you make a lunch for Dad every day?
Yeah, because he was always at the school supervising or something, so I always made lunch for Dad.
Wow. So did you get the tuna fish and lettuce and
Oh, heavens,
pickles too?
Hey, if she
Bologna and
fixes
dill
me
pickle.
a tuna melt,
Yeah.
I love a tuna melt.
Yeah.
That's got the pickles in it and the
chicken
tuna
of the
and
sea.
cheese across and grilled in the broiler.
Sun-kissed tuna.
But his favorite was bologna and dill pickle.
Yeah,
Bologna and dill pickle.
And sometimes there'd be a note in the middle of the sandwich.
yeah.
Inside the sandwich?
Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
go to
it's-
bite it and they're, what the devil? I love you.
Oh, that's cute. You do that to Dad?
Not every day, every time, but you know,
To remind me.
every once in a while.
Wow. That's like a Sheila's fortune cookie.
There you go.
So who was the principal and were you ever called to the office?
You put these in there so you could answer them, Blaine. Go for
Were
it.
you ever called to the office?
Never.
Eddie? Well, the first principal that I was called to the office was an RFP, Tom Davis. And Blaine Campbell and they had a livery stable barn over on the school property across about a block away.
Yeah.
And the wind was really blowing and we'd take and rip off the wood shingles and we'd flip them into the air, see how far the wind would take them.
Oh, wow.
And they were never using the building.
Yeah.
So we didn't think there's anything wrong with it. We got called in, got strapped for it.
Oh, wow.
We were only 8 or 9, I would think, something like that.
So was Grandma Faye okay with you getting the strap?
Yeah, you know what? A strap wasn't anything. That was just an everyday occurrence.
So did she have that same philosophy you did, that whatever happens to you at school happens when you get home too?
I don't think so. I think that came because I was the principal of a junior high school.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, if that was the case, I'm sure you didn't even... Did the school even contact her to let her know that you'd got in trouble and got the strap?
No, there was no communication.
How
like
about did the school ever contact her and let her know that a teacher made you drop your pants and pull a sliver out of your butthole?
Oh, no, none of that. None of that.
Insane. That's crazy. So what were your favorite activities when school was out?
When school was out, we'd play softball a lot. We'd play hockey or baseball or,
Did you have to go home and do chores?
Yeah.
How about Mom?
No, I never really had. Mom would never really have a big chore for me. On Saturdays, yes, but not after school. But after school, I'd go home, change my clothes, head to the pasture, and catch my horse and go riding every night.
Really?
Yep.
What was your horse's name?
Flicka.
Flicka?
Flicka.
was her friend.
I did a lot of riding with Mark Workman.
Huh?
An awful
Was that
lot.
Jody's
dad, yeah.
Yeah. He had a horse, and we'd get together and we would go over the hill and down to the river and out to Park Bend. And
So was that your own horse?
well, it was a family horse, but I rode it 90% of the time. Shirley never did.
Adverse possession.
Right? Did anybody else... that's interesting. I've never even heard that before. So did Aunt Ramona ride it?
No, none
Uncle
of
Jim?
my.
None of your siblings rode
No,
like
Jim
you.
did. He had another horse that was a kind of a palomino color. It was named Buck.
Oh, right.
But we had a well up in our where our barn was, and we had a well, and I can remember riding this horse and pretending, and then we had Gibbs had a well in a tree, and I would barrel race around our well, and then up over to the tree, and then back over to their well, and then back.
How old were you
Hour
when you
after.
got the horse?
Oh, well, I was probably 9, 10. 9,
Yeah,
8,
you rode a lot.
8 or 9, something like that.
We used to go down the alleyway, and Campbell's had a huge rope swing that we liked to play on. That was fun. I remember.
What was really funny is I was pretty small at 9 or 10, but I could put the saddle on that horse and saddle it up at 9 or 10. I know Mark would lots of times cinch it up pretty good, tighter for me, but I could pretty much do that at that age. Well, you look at Finn, he
Yeah.
could do it.
Yeah, he's 11, and he's big for his age.
She might have been a little older than you think, but
Yeah.
anyway.
But that's so. How old were you when Flicka
Oh.
died?
Oh, I don't know. It was, well, Blaine and I were dating, wasn't it, Blaine? Or was it after? I don't even
I think it was
remember.
after we were married.
So did you ever ride with her dad?
No.
I remember you did go on a ride with me, and you were on that buck, and he ran away with you, and that was the last of your riding skills.
Was it kind of
I
embarrassing?
was not a horseback rider. No.
My dad would saddle that horse up
Yeah.
for me after schools a lot.
Yeah.
I'd go catch it, bring it back to the house. He'd saddle it up, and then I would go. But when I was 13 or 12 or 13, I could put that saddle.
Did you must have had a halter on that horse so you could just bring it put the,
Oh, I could put the bridle in its mouth, and I
when
could.
you were 9?
Oh no, not when I was 9, but I remember when I was. See, we had that pasture over by the
Yeah,
church,
yeah.
and this horse. It was pretty big pasture, and it wasn't really one to be caught easily. So Dad put a thing on its foot,
Oh.
a chain on its
yeah.
foot, so that it couldn't run. And so I would go over there and put the bridle on it, and then I bring it home, and Dad put the saddle on it for me. But when I was older, I would go over and catch the horse, bring it back, and I remember standing on the corner of I don't know if it was a shed or what it was, but that's how I would get that saddle on there, is I would stand on this step of this shed, and then I would swing that saddle over, and I could kick its belly and make it get all the gas out of it, so I could pull and cinch that thing up, and then I could get on it and go. But it was pretty little.
That's so interesting. Did you form a bond with that horse? Like,
Yeah.
did that horse like you more than all the other?
Oh yeah, because I was the only one that really rode it. Jim always rode the
Buck?
Palomino, Buck, and the other sisters never did like him. I don't ever remember Shirley riding a horse.
I'm just
Ramona.
picturing Uncle Jim in a Speedo on a horse with his hair flying like that Palomino's hair matching.
The one side.
He had nice hair when he was a young kid.
Yeah. That's not, I don't like to visualize something like that. I prefer the comb over the rat tail.
Yeah.
So, what other hobbies did you have, Mom, growing up?
I took piano lessons, so I always had to practice that, but that was no hobby.
Did you like it?
Yeah, until it got harder, and then I didn't. But, and my mom always, she liked to crochet and knit and make quilts and everything, and she'd try in the winter time to get me to sit down, and she'd show me, and I never did. And it wasn't until after she passed away that Kathy taught me. And I often look at Blaine and say, my mom would be so proud of me of all these Afghans. I remember, when was it, Blaine? It was just made all those kids and grandkids, all the girls in Afghan. I think I made about 20 that winter, and that was just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I've said so many times to Blaine, oh, my mom would be so proud of me, because she tried to get me to do that, and I never sit down and do it. So
I know it's interesting as a parent, the things that we try to instill in our kids, and that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. It's the
Yeah.
same thing with Max. I'm trying to get him to learn how to read notes, and one day he'll realize that he should have listened to me, but can't
and then
make
he'll
him do
learn
it.
them. Then he'll learn
Yeah,
them.
hopefully.
But you know what? This was our bedtime stories, too. This is a pastime. Shirley and I always slept in a big bed. After Rex left and Grandpa passed away, we got the big bedroom. And we always got a Sears and Roebuck catalog. We'd lay in bed, and one page would be hers and one page would be mine. And we'd open this catalog and we'd see all these dresses and all these pretty shirts and T-shirts and everything. And we'd open this up and we'd say, well, I like this. I'll trade you this for this, and trade you this for this, or these shoes for that. And that was our bedtime story. We did that night after night after night. As soon as the Christmas one come out, that was a real treat because we could just say, "Oh, this is so pretty," and I'll trade you this for this or this for this. Isn't that crazy?
That's so funny. Now, who were your friends growing up, Mom? Your best school chums?
Well, Maxine Caldwell, Claudia Caldwell, Marlene Draper, but Rian and I were inseparable. Yeah. Rian and I were together. We slept each other's places.
Till what age?
Till what age?
Yeah.
Oh, we were still dating. We were still the best of friends when Blaine and I were dating.
Yeah, we double dated with
her and Norman. Yeah, honestly. Rian and I were so always, and everybody would get us mixed up. I don't know.
Oh, did you look a lot like her?
No.
Even
had dark hair.
Yeah.
But we must have done, because I can't even believe, after we were married, I went down to Calms to get some dry cleaning that I'd taken there. He couldn't find it because he had put it in as under Rian instead of me. So he thought it was just crazy. And we must look something alike, because I went into Lethbridge, and this was in my later years, probably 8 years ago. I went in to have a mammogram, and this lady said, "Man, you look so much like my friend's mother, I can't believe it." And I said, "Well, who's your friend?" "Renee Butler." And I said, "Is their mom's name Rian?" And she said, "Yeah, you remind me so much of her." Out of the blue.
The blue, yeah. Is she still alive?
Oh, yeah, she lives in Lethbridge.
Do you talk to her ever?
Never.
Aw.
On Facebook.
Facebook once in a while, but never.
No.
Never. It's so sad.
I
But
know,
we were inseparable.
Well, now that we've done this little...
Go home and get to know her.
go home and go out for lunch with her.
You get caught up.
What about you, Dad? Who was your best friend growing up?
Well, can I talk about hobby first?
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't know if any of my kids even realize this, but I was a stamp collector.
What?
All through high school. And I had an amazing collection of stamps, and in our move somewhere, they disappeared.
I'm sure I chucked them. Isn't that the saddest thing?
Yeah, they're probably worth something now.
Oh, it would have been.
Dang.
I really had a good stamp collection. I had thousands of stamps, and I loved it. I'd look at the catalogs and order.
Well, that makes me
them.
sick, because I'm sure I chucked them in one of our moves.
Anyway, I didn't think my kids would know that, so
No.
that's why I mentioned it. And but my best school chums growing up would have been Robert Russell, Mike Barfus, and Mark Workman.
Bob Russell?
No, Robert. Robert's dad was Orvin, and that was Keith's brother. He was the principal of the school, and Robert and I were pretty well inseparable when we were just in junior high school and that.
It's interesting that you and Mom are throwing out names that I've never heard before. Isn't it interesting that you didn't keep up with them? Or that, at least when I was a kid growing up, you didn't still hang out with your buddies from high school. I would understand if they moved somewhere far away, but it sounds like, did they all stay around Cardston area in southern Alberta?
Well, Robert didn't. Robert went away to university, and then that kind of...
Blaine, did you just say Mark Workman was a really good friend of yours?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Mark and I were good friends. He was 2 months older than me. His birthday's in February.
He was, eh?
And then, of course, Mark's passed away, Mike's passed away, and I don't know where Robert is now. But those were the ones, my school chums, when I went to Hill Spring. So, yeah.
Interesting. Now, this is a funny question because I don't know where you're going with it. Do you remember standing in front of the class to tell a story, read a paper, or perform mathematics on a chalkboard?
Did you ever have to do that, honey?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
The reason I put that in there is because when I was in grade 4, Robert, my good friend, he was really good at math. And, of course, he'd help me
Yeah.
We might have cheated a little bit too, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Nellie Harker had Robert and I go up to show the class how to do this math problem. And man, I have good peripheral vision. And so I just was able to complete that math problem, and she gave us the commendations for being so good at math. And I put my tongue in my cheek and sat down.
Wow.
Didn't we used to have spelling bees that way too?
Oh,
You'd
having
go up there
spelling
and
bees, yeah.
you'd have who could spell the word the fastest on the board. You'd have two people.
Yeah, they used to
You have
have spelling
spelling
bees,
bees.
and math bees, and all sorts of things like that.
So Dad just admitted to cheating. Mom, do you ever remember cheating?
Oh
in
yeah,
school?
I was a cheater too.
You have to have good peripheral vision to make it happen, of
Yeah.
course.
And whoever says they never cheated in school is lying. You always try something.
Right. So what sports did you play? Any sports, Mom? Growing up?
I played basketball 1 year, and then I was a cheerleader from then on.
You played track and field.
Oh
did
yeah,
track and field.
I was a dang good runner.
Yeah,
Really?
not fast enough to get away from me though.
Yeah,
Oh. Good dude.
I did really well in track and field actually.
What about you, Dad?
Oh, in high school, basketball.
Yeah.
And softball. In fact, two things come to mind with basketball. One was we used to play in a league called the Far West League, and it was with Glenwood and Cardston and Jefferson, Mountain View, and Hillspring. And Barry Oviatt played for Glenwood, and one Friday night he scored 46 points
Oh, wow.
to set the record for the
Who was that?
for the league
Barry
record.
Oviatt.
Barry Oviatt.
Oh.
The next week I set the record at 48 points,
Oh, wow.
and the next
How old were you?
that's when I was in grade 12, and the next week Greg Eaglepoom scored 56.
Whoa.
And so 3 weeks in a row, that record got broken. The only part that it really makes me feel bad is that we were playing St. Mary's Warriors when he scored those 56 points
Oh.
against us. But we didn't have a coach, to tell us, and he had us in his own defense. And this Greg was just popping him from the corner right and left, and I begged the coach, let me take him one-on-one.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't do it. So
Who was your coach?
George Fletcher, rest his soul. he's dead now. He got crushed with a Euclid in the building of the Waterton Dam.
Oh, wow.
But
Unnecessary detail.
and then he played fast pitch, and I pitched softball, fast pitch softball, and we won the regional church championship. And so we went to Salt Lake City to the all church young men's fast pitch and got our butts kicked.
Now, wasn't Uncle Daryl really good at
Darrell
that?
was an excellent fastball pitcher. In fact, he went to the Canadian Championships playing for Dallas Cowboys.
Really?
In Lethbridge, Dallas Hotel Cowboys were the sponsor. But no, he pitched in the big.
That was back when they had that goofy pitch, right? That looks like you're having a stroke, or that you change your mind halfway through.
Darrell could throw a pitch, a windmill pitch, underneath, and as he'd release it, he'd turn it, he'd have it on the seams, and he'd turn it to the right and let it roll off his thumb like this, and drop his thumb down, his hand down as he turned it to the left and over top, and he'd take that thing and it would break, easily a foot.
Really?
A foot, and would rise because he'd rolled it off the top of his thumb, and it would go up at the same time. And when he had that pitch working for him, nobody could hit him.
Wow.
Oh, he was
so
good.
interesting.
He was good.
What year did they start changing it to overhand?
To slow pitch.
No, normal pitch.
You're thinking baseball.
Yeah.
Baseball and softball were two different things.
Oh, I see.
Okay,
I see.
but the fast pitch changed because it was church leagues. It changed when we were in Cardston, hon?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I'd say about 1970, something
okay.
like that.
Huh.
That's where the fast pitch ended, and I love fast pitch. I watched the girls play fast pitch.
Yeah.
I still love it. It's just a great game.
Oh, that's interesting. So what was your favorite song in high school?
Anything Elvis sang.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, loved Elvis. But I don't know a favorite song. Hey, hon, have you got?
I love that Corina. I don't know who. I love that one. But anyway.
Did you have a class ring, and did you share it with anyone?
That was a pointed one. Of course, I had one, and if you look at my hands and you look at Mom's hands, you realize that she had to use a whole roll of gauze tape in order to put it on her finger and have it fit, eh, honey?
Yeah.
So you would wear Dad's class ring?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was the thing in those days.
That was how you.
That was how you're
How you going steady?
going steady. You give your girlfriend the class.
It wasn't a jacket, a Letterman jacket?
No,
No, it was a class ring.
just a glass.
You either wore it around your neck or you wore it on your finger with a whole
whole
load
bunch
of
of tape.
You get loaded tape.
tape on it.
So what about clothing trends? What were the clothing trends in high school?
Flood pants.
Huh?
Flood pants. You could see, but they had a buckle on the back. Remember, honey?
Yep.
A buckle on the back. Short sleeved shirts rolled up. You'd have to have at least 2 rolls up,
Enough for a pack of smokes.
enough for a pack of smokes, or to show off you got biceps.
Wow. Did Uncle Barry roll smokes into
Oh, I don't want he
No, he didn't. He was.
but he rolled his shirts up
Oh,
2
heavens,
rows
yes,
every time.
heavens, yes,
He was a
yeah.
pretty classy dresser, Barry was.
Yeah.
Well, you boys had the
And Mom had her mom made all her clothes.
yeah, I very rarely bought anything. I remember getting an Angora sweater for Christmas one time and I thought I'd died and gone to heaven.
Always wore dresses.
his? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To change them when you get to old flick up, right?
Yep. We never ever wore blue jeans back in the day, did we?
Did you roll your blue jeans up to show off your Converse shoes?
Uh-huh.
So you'd cuff them high enough to see the whole.
Yeah, and of course, your buckskin shoes. You know that we didn't wear white bucks, but we had a
Yeah.
buckskin shoe.
Now, did you play basketball in Converse as well?
Uh-huh.
That just seems like you're gonna roll your ankle every time you turn around in those things. There's no support at all.
I only had really one bad ankle turn, a sprained ankle, playing basketball in all those years.
Wow. So where were your usual hangout places in high school?
Holy cow.
In the corner of the gym. Remember, Norv Peterson, the principal would come around, he'd stick his head around quick to see if he could catch us if we were doing something untowards. But we'd just be sitting in the corner of the gym, through the doors, holding hands, talking.
But I think you're talking about a place where a whole group of you would hang out at.
Yeah.
Like the Lions Field.
No, I just care about you and Dad.
Oh, where we would hang out.
That's where you and Dad would
Mud
hang out.
Hill. Mud Hill.
Oh,
that was all
I
fun.
never went to Mud Hill, you crazy poop.
No, up on the hill. We'd go up on the hill and smooch a little bit, eh? And remember?
I don't remember that.
You don't, eh?
Was there a big hill?
Yeah, and it was like a roller coaster type thing, and it's out past Weasel Winder's place.
You need to come home for a visit, Brandon, so you can see all the Hill Spring, the houses in
I
Hill Spring
know.
on the hill.
Hill City.
Hell City is what I call it.
Yeah. Wow. So what did you ever skip school? And what
Yeah.
were the consequences?
What was it?
I never
Didn't you ever skip?
skipped school.
Well, my brother and my cousin Don and Ralph Skipworth and Monty Lishman and I was only in grade 10. They were in grade 11 and grade 12. They said, nothing happens. All they do is make you mop the gym floor. It's April Fool's Day. So we took off, and the whole time I was gone, I worried about not, being out of school, because I never skipped school before. And we came back to school the next day, and I'll never forget the principal, Narv Peterson, comes in, he had a letter. He slaps it down on our desk like that, and said, get out. You're suspended for skipping school. And so
Wow.
We went home and told Mom, and because we just thought that they would, because heretofore they'd always just made him do some punishment like mopping the gym floor, washing the windows or whatever, And the assistant superintendent, Cal Merkley, came out to visit, and so to see us, and we all 5 or 6 of us were sitting in the seminary room, which was just over on the side of the high school, and he's talking to us about the seriousness of skipping,
what you had just done,
of skipping school and whatnot, and my brother got a smirk on his face, and he looked up at him and he says, "You get that smirk off your face, or you'll never get back in this school. Am I clear?" And so then he gave us an assignment, and we had a week's suspension. We had to do all work at home for a week for that. And so that cured me of...
You never skipped again?
Didn't skip again.
Was Grandma mad?
She wasn't very happy with us, Dumb mistake. But
Did
she
Grandma
was always defended us, And
Yeah. Did she ever ground you? Take the car away?
No. I wish she had have done because of Barry just used it.
You'd fill it up and he'd run it out. You'd
Well,
fill it
and
up.
then he'd have her call his employer and say he was sick today when he wasn't sick. He just had a hangover, or he just was too lazy to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Were they known, Mom, for having the nice cars?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody knew the Bunnage boys.
And they were spoiled. They were not well loved in Hill Spring.
A lot of jealousy.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
I think so. 1958 Meteor Rideau 500 convertible. Why would my mom ever do that?
So what was it? Say it again.
1958 Meteor Rideau 500 convertible stick shift.
Can you imagine the talk at the Sunday dinner table after?
And it cost $3,900.
And at that time, that was a ton of money.
Oh, that was a lot of money, yeah.
She just
And
did
Mom
it for
only
her
was at
boys.
work.
I can imagine the talk at the Sunday table
Oh, yeah.
in Hill Spring after that purchase.
Wow. Well, you're the only one in southern Alberta who had that car?
Yep.
And I got to date him in it.
Wow.
And I hated it.
She
'cause
didn't like a convertible.
I did not
her hair
like the
would get
wind
messy.
in my hair.
She'd get the hair messy.
Well, what about Flicka?
When I was young then, I wasn't
She didn't
really
ride-
looking
ride
for
very
a
Worried
well.
boy.
about your hair then?
No.
You weren't trying to impress Mark Workman?
No.
So did you decide when you were in Hill Spring where you were going to go to college?
Yes. Both of us did, actually, because Mom was going to go to Calgary, and she had to complete grade 11 yet. And I had decided I wanted to stay home close by. I wanted to stay home close by her, and so I decided I'd go to Lethbridge Junior College, which was the start of the University of Lethbridge. Mm-hmm. I'd take 1 year there and then transfer to the University of Calgary. That was our plan. And then by that time, Mom would finish grade 11, and then she would go to the Modern College of Business in Calgary.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. So I didn't finish grade 12. I didn't get a diploma. I just went from grade 11 and went straight to Calgary to this business college. So I would have something to fall back on.
Wow. Now, did you attend? Wait. While at school, what were your living arrangements?
Oh, when I was in Lethbridge, I stayed with Kelvin and Jean McDonnell in their place. And when I went to Calgary, before we got married, I stayed at Uncle Jerry and Aunt Diane's place.
Oh, was that awkward?
No, they were just so good to me. I just feel bad because I probably didn't appreciate it as much as I should. But although I think that I was appreciative to them and thanked them a lot. But I mean, just open your doors up and having a snot-nosed kid come in and invade your house.
Well, Kelvin and Jean, good?
Yeah, really good. Yeah.
So what was your major course of study?
Well, Mom's was business, eh?
Yeah, and I lived with Kathy. Rian and I both ended up living with Kathy. She went up and did the same thing as I did. And
So did Maxine.
yeah.
Your friends were all together there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ann Levitt went up there, but she was Was it? It wasn't the very same year, but she went to that
No,
too.
'cause she'd been a year.
So your friend Rian Butler lived with you?
At Kathy's, yep.
Yeah, for a year.
Re-enlistment at the
Yeah.
time.
Oh,
She was just like a sister. We were
Yeah.
inseparable. We did
Yeah.
everything together.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All right. So, Dad, did you get a scholarship in sports? Did you play sports?
They didn't offer a scholarship. I played with the Kodiaks at the Lethbridge College. In fact, we're the first ones that called it that by that name, and then went.
Were you guys good?
Yeah, we had a good team. We played the University of Calgary, and they beat us by 7, I think. But we didn't have a lot of height. That was our I played forward for the and heavens. When I think back of how little I knew, but Tom Sendlinger was our coach, and he played with the Broder Chinooks, the Canadian senior men's champions, A champions, and he taught us how to pick and roll and play defense and and shoot properly and
So you had a lot of skill, just natural athletic ability, but you hadn't been coached well up until that point.
No, not anything how to play properly or do anything like that. And then when I went to Calgary, Mom and I were planning on getting married, and so I just figured that athletics was just not going to be my cup of tea because I was getting married, so I didn't try out. And I did play intramural basketball, and we did well in that. And I played intramural football. And in fact, one of the friend of the quarterback, Ted Rhodes was his name, for the University of Calgary, came up to me because for some reason he was watching our intramural game.
Yeah.
And he said, "How come you didn't try out for the football team?" And I said, "Why wouldn't I make it?" He says, "Oh yeah." He said, "We need you. We'd have loved to have had you on the receiving line." This was after the team had been chosen, whatever, But it was a time where I thought, no, I needed to be. We were just starting a family,
Yeah.
and so I didn't play beyond that.
Do you regret that?
No, not really, not really.
But what about in basketball? Mom, is he the best basketball player in Southern Alberta?
Oh, you have no idea.
So,
He was pretty darn good. He was really good. He was pretty well known throughout Southern Alberta,
yeah.
being the best basketball player, one of the best that.
I remember Dale Cahoon. We were playing golf one time, and he and I were in the same cart, and somehow basketball came up, and Dale said to me, I can't remember how he worded it, but something to the effect of, "You'll never understand how good of a basketball player your dad was." And I said, "Oh, really?" And he said everybody knew your dad, and your dad was the best basketball player in Southern Alberta. Like nobody had seen him. His
too bad you
athletic
didn't.
ability was so good.
You talk about Darryl and his pitching. Well, that was just like Dad and his basketball. He had a really good name for himself in Southern Alberta for playing basketball.
When I was a kid at Hillspring playing ball, I thought that the only way to do it was to shoot, and so I was a gunner.
Yeah.
No questions about it. When I scored those 48 points, I thought I was great. I look back now and I'm embarrassed because I would have hogged the ball.
Yeah.
And so I spent the rest of my basketball career after university trying to downlive that reputation, and so I did become a really good passer. So I would think that I
You're
would have
mad-
had average 8 or 10 assists a game easily, I would think.
Yeah.
Remember Dwayne Quinton and you?
Oh, yeah. All the guys I played with.
And they knew
Dwayne
exactly
was the
what
best.
Blaine was going to do.
Really?
Yeah, it
Well,
was
I knew
fun
where
to
Dwayne
watch.
was going to be. He's a perpetual motion machine,
Yeah.
Had long arms. He could reach out.
I guess I was really good at a no-look pass.
Yeah.
My peripheral vision
Yeah.
was good.
Yeah.
And I remember hitting. Clark Sloan played with our team, and he posts up, into the key at the foul line, and I just hit him with a no-look piece and got him smack on the beak. And called timeout, and he came back that's when Tim Tallship was playing with us.
Yeah.
And he started bawling me out for throwing that stupid pass to him and whatever. And so I just told him, got to watch. I'm not going to look at you when I'm going to pass it to you. And Tim says, "Now, boys, let's just calm down here." But he was ready to cuss me out. Ready to cuss me out for throwing a bad pass to him. It wasn't a bad pass. It was a really good pass.
Yeah, it just hit him right in the face. I remember when I was in middle school or junior high and you were coaching me and you'd always yell at us in practice and say, "Stop telegraphing your passes." We'd all say, "What's a telegraph?"
Yeah.
But that was Dad's advice all the time. Stop telegraphing your passes.
Okay, tell me what a telegraph your pass is.
It just means don't look where you're passing.
Don't
It's
look
the
where you're
same thing,
passing
'cause then someone's going to steal it. But if you
Yeah,
look this way,
the kids wouldn't know. One of the things that I love to do is if we had the ball on the baseline,
yeah,
the referee would hand me the ball, and Dwayne knew, or my teammates knew, that as soon as I got the ball, it was coming to him. You know, because I just had the ball like this, and I like to give my opponent a brush cut every time, just right over their head. They duck down like this, and it just made them look silly. But anyway, enough of that.
Is Dwayne Quinton a good athlete?
Oh,
He was really good.
Really good.
He's a good basketball
But
player.
Blaine, you first ward team, you had a good softball team too.
Oh yeah.
You could play. Your dad could play softball too. He's fun to watch.
I always liked Dwayne
Yeah.
Quinton. He was our scout leader. He's always a nice guy.
He's
Yeah.
not in good health right now, but
So were there any professors in college that had an impression on you?
I think the best one would have been Dr. Ogilvy. He really got me interested in botany for some reason, and I'd go out with him, and he'd have me working down there identifying plants, the flora down in his flora lab down at the university.
Oh, that I did not know.
I was just telling Tash that she said she came in here when you guys were talking about putting the plants out here, and she says, "I didn't know Dad knew so much about plants." And I said, "Oh,
I've
well."
forgotten so much, but I mean, there was a time where I could basically identify any plant in the southern Alberta.
Tasha had never heard that either.
So,
that's
and
interesting.
their generic name, the genus and the species of the name,
Yeah.
because I would go into the lab and I'd identify them and put them on there, and so I think that he was probably the best. The most unforgettable one was Dr. Prince, and you should see my notes from then. I'd be writing my cursive, and all of a sudden there's a line drops down because
You fall asleep?
oh, he was so boring. Oh, it was bad.
After this interview, you're not going to have to write a book.
I remember you saying when you were in college that people would smoke in class.
Yeah.
Cigarettes. Like your professors would even smoke while they were teaching.
The one that I remember the most was, I forget his name now, but he smoked a cigar.
That's nasty.
Couldn't believe it. He in political science, 300, remember?
Wow. So how much was your tuition when you started?
$450 a year, but the Department of Veterans Affairs paid my tuition.
Oh.
So I didn't have to worry about that. And then they gave me a stipend of $94 a month as a child of a fallen soldier.
Oh.
See, and they gave Mom an allowance. And I don't know how much Mom got. I think it was probably a couple $100 a month allowance from Veterans Affairs. But if we went to school within 18 months of graduation from grade 12, they would pay our tuition and the stipend per month till we completed our education.
That's awesome.
Well, it is, but you see,
You didn't know that?
No.
But what it stopped me from, though, was even thinking about a mission.
Yeah.
And because I thought
18
months, because they were 2 years or 2.5 year missions, but I always wondered, after having served as a bishop, why my bishop wouldn't have called me aside and said, "Blaine, let me go to bat for you and see if we can make this work for you," because I was always active. It wasn't as if I was never at church or anything, but he never ever even asked me if I wanted to go on a mission, unless he'd ask once and I'd said, "Oh no, I have to go to school."
Yeah.
Within 18
But
months.
little did you know that he asked me several times, and I said, "Oh, he's not worthy. Don't even ask him."
I do remember asking Dad that question when I was in high school. When you were my bishop, I asked you if you regretted going on a mission. Do you remember what you told me? Nope.
No, because I found your mom.
Yep. You said I might have missed out on her if I had.
Yep.
So
Yep, one of those Hill Spring boys would have nabbed me right up. I'd have been watching rodeo for the rest of my life. So
were you shocked, or was it difficult for you to go the transition from high school to college? Was that difficult for you?
Yes, very much so. I'll never forget the English 200 that I took as freshman English, and I wrote, and it was early, first 3 weeks of the semester. I wrote this paper for this English professor, and he hands it back to me, 20%. Whoa. And so I said, I raised my hand, I said, have you got time that I can come and visit you? And he says, yeah, sure, come on in. And so I went in to see him, and I said, you only gave me 20% on this paper? He says, that was a gift. I said, what? And he says, oh, yeah. He says, your essay writing your paper writing is not good. And I says, well, will you give me some help then? He says, absolutely, I will. I'll get you going. And I think by the time I graduated from university that I was a pretty good writer. I'm not like Brent, but I'm a business type writer. I just need to say it and then get it done. And I think I'm a pretty good writer by now.
Well, you can tell by all the talks you were giving, at church and graduations and funerals, and then you've written 5 books. I mean, the proof's in the pudding.
Was it spelling and grammar that he had a problem with, or what was it? Or just meandering?
Oh, it was composition, parts of speech,
Yeah.
Blaine, but you lost that from, who in high school should have taught you that?
Oh, rest his soul, George Fletcher.
Oh.
That explains it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why the Euclid got him.
Yeah.
Such a lousy teacher.
Wow. So what are we missing? Anything else? Oh, did you have a part-time job while you were attending school?
Oh, yeah.
Did I? Yeah, I did.
Wait till you read the book, you'll find out why he ever had any time for his wife. None.
Well, while I was going to university, after I finished my second year, that's when we got married, after my second year, and it gave me a Standard S teaching certificate, which allowed me to teach from grades 5 through 11 in the province of Alberta.
Oh.
So then I went to the city of Calgary and put my name on the substitute teacher list. So every Tuesday and Thursday of my 3rd and 4th year of going to university, I sub-taught every stinking day. And every day at 6 o'clock, I'd wake up and, don't ring, because I made a whopping $15 a day. Oh. And then in addition to that, then I taught winter rec. So I taught badminton, basketball, tennis, tumbling for the city of Calgary 2 nights a week as well. And then in the summertime, and then the guy that was responsible for I was a day camp counselor in the summertime, and then the guy that was responsible for that said, "Hey, why don't you get your life saving from the Y and supervise a pool for me?" Because he was in charge of the pools. So I went to the YMCA and to find out how to be a lifesaver. And the first night I was there, the guy that was teaching was supervising it. I said, I have this question. I said, I can do a front crawl, and I showed him my front crawl. He said, oh yeah, I can see that. And I says, but the problem is, I can go one length of the pool and I'm done. I'm pooped right out. I see these kids swimming forever. And he says, oh, I'll have to show you how to fix that. He says, let me see your front crawl again. So he says, now why don't you slow it down? Just go really slow. And then so I did that, and he says, oh no, slower than that. Slow it down. So I slowed it down more than that, and he says, now I want you to go half that speed. It just seemed like I was just hanging in the water.
Yeah.
He says, you just keep swimming, see how far you can go. 50 lengths.
Oh, wow.
50 lengths.
It's because you thought
because I was hyperventilating. I wasn't, breathing in and expelling the water like that. Anyway, so I got my life-saving certificate from there, and then I supervised at the Inglewood swimming pool in the city of Calgary for 2 summers.
What'd that pay you?
Oh, can't remember now what that was. I think it was, we made $1.35 an hour or something like that, $1.50.
What did you do during this time?
Well, I got a job right out of college, business college. I got a job right at Barber Ellis. It was a big paper company.
Oh, yeah. It's that stinky mill on the other side of 3rd Avenue.
So anyway, I worked throughout the
Isn't
summer.
that what it says?
I don't know.
Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong thing. I thought it was. I thought there was
Barber
big
Ellis.
white towers that said Barber
It was
Ellis.
on 9th Avenue.
Anyway, I worked for the whole summer. I worked all summer, and we'd go home every weekend that we could. But all our summers were tied up to Calgary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
So that's
someone's
where-
gonna have to fact check me on that, Mom. I always thought that when I lived in Lethbridge, just off of,
Oh, this was in Calgary.
I thought there was a mill. What's the
Paper mill?
Like a paper mill. There's a connecting highway between Lethbridge and Coaldale. What's that called again?
I can't remember. But it was a big.
Yeah, there was 2 great big white towers. I thought they said Barber Ellis.
Yeah,
on them.
that's
Anyway.
Don't,
And I
don't
worked
recall.
for $180 a month. That was big bucks.
Yeah.
That paid for our rent.
Wow.
No, our rent
More
was.
than that. Our
Yeah.
first rent was only $79.
Yeah, and the next place we
walked it
bought.
up 115.
Yeah.
Wow.
We were afraid we might not be able to make that work.
Well, that is awesome.
But
Well,
we did leave. When we left Calgary, we didn't have a debt to our name. I'd gone through
that's
university, had no debt whatsoever, and a little money in the bank.
And a brand new, beautiful bedroom suite that I wanted so
Yep,
bad that
yep.
you went out and bought me to bring to Hill Spring. And
Wow.
all kinds of people in Hill Spring come over to see this beautiful bedroom suite.
Bring
And
their lunch.
I still
Really?
have a piece of it. It
Which
was
one?
solid wood.
Our headboard,
Really?
the dresser that's right in our master bedroom.
Yeah.
And then my long one downstairs
Yeah.
beside my office.
That's from that?
That's from that.
Wow. It's still good quality.
That's
It
only
is soft.
55 years ago.
Wow.
Solid wood. It was the most beautiful piece, and it was absolutely, and it's still good as can be. The
Wow.
drawers are all tongue and groove, yeah.
That-
And I remember wanting that so bad. Anyway, we bought it, and I think it was $700, which was a lot of money at that time.
Yeah,
But
no
Dad,
kidding.
Dad went and got that for me.
It's like 3.5 months of work for
That's
you.
right. Anyway,
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that is awesome. Well, that concludes episode 2.
Okay.
and I don't know if you're going to get all these others, because holy cow, you guys, this is.
We might need to do another session between now and Christmas.